The crystal spires of Kelva Prime gleamed under the twin suns, their surfaces catching light and spreading it through the city like captured rainbows. Ambassador Wu Jin walked slowly through the council chambers, his pale blue skin reflecting the soft glow from the walls. His large dark eyes showed worry that he tried to hide from the other council members. The news had come 3 days ago. The Vorthak Empire was moving toward their system. Every world they had touched was now a burned shell, stripped of life and resources. The insect-like Vorthak took everything and left nothing behind. They have given us 30 days, Council Leader Boram said quietly. Her voice was soft, like all Kelvani voices, but everyone in the room could hear the fear in it. 30 days to surrender or they will destroy everything. Wu Jin stopped walking and looked at the holographic display floating in the center of the room. It showed their peaceful worlds, green and blue and beautiful. Around them, like hungry red dots, were the Vorthak ships, hundreds of them. "We have no military," said Tae-hyun from his position at the communication station. He was young for a Kelvani, barely past his first century, and his hands shook as he spoke. "We have never needed one. Our people do not know how to fight." The Kelvani had always been peaceful. For thousands of years they had grown their cities instead of building them, used plants and living things to make their technology work. They could heal almost any wound, grow food that tasted like music, and create art that made people cry with joy. But they had never learned to hurt anyone. "What about the other species?" Boram asked. "Surely someone will help us." Wu Jin shook his head slowly. "I have sent messages to everyone we know. The Centauri Federation says they cannot interfere. The crystal courts are too far away. The machine collective does not involve itself in organic conflicts." The room fell silent. Outside the great windows, Kelvani children played in gardens that grew up the sides of buildings. They laughed and sang, not knowing that death was coming for them. "There must be someone," Tae-hyun said. His voice was desperate now. "In all the galaxy, there must be someone who will help." Wu Jin looked at the young communications officer. An idea was growing in his mind, dangerous and desperate. "What if we asked everyone?" he said slowly. "Not just the species we know, everyone." Boram's eyes widened. "A general broadcast? But that could reach thousands of unknown species. We have no idea who might answer." "The Vorthak will kill us all anyway," Wu Jin replied. "What do we have to lose?" The council talked for hours. Some members were afraid that a general broadcast might bring even worse enemies to their system. Others worried that it would make them look weak to the galaxy. But as the hours passed and no better ideas came, they began to see that Wu Jin was right. They had nothing left to lose. Tae-hyun worked through the night to prepare the message. It would go out on every frequency they knew, carried by quantum relays to every corner of known space. The message was simple but carried all their hope. To any species capable of providing military assistance, the message began. "The Kelvani Republic faces total destruction by the Vorthak Empire. We are a peaceful people with no weapons and no knowledge of war. In 30 standard days, our worlds will be destroyed and our people enslaved or killed. We offer our most precious gift, our bioregeneration technology, to any who will help us survive. Please, if you can hear this, if you have the power to fight, we beg you to help us." The message went out at dawn, racing across space faster than light. Wu Jin stood in the communications center, watching the transmission indicators as their plea spread through the galaxy. He tried not to think about what might answer their call. The first responses came quickly. Most were what they expected. The Altari Empire sent sympathy but said their fleets were busy with border disputes. The Silk Road Consortium offered to evacuate some Kelvani for a price, but not many. The Void Dancers said they would remember the Kelvani in their death songs. Days passed. More messages came in, but none offered real help. Some species had never heard of the Vorthak. Others knew them too well and would not risk fighting them. A few offered to accept Kelvani refugees, but only a small number. Wu Jin began to lose hope. He spent his days in the council chambers, listening to reports of Vorthak ships moving closer. His people were trying to evacuate the outer worlds, but there was nowhere to go. The Vorthak had surrounded them completely. On the 15th day, something changed. Tae-hyun called out from his station, his voice excited for the first time in weeks. "Ambassador, we have a new response." Wu Jin hurried over to the communication station. On the screen was a message unlike any they had received. It was short and direct, without the usual diplomatic language. "Help is coming. Hold your positions. Terran Defense Coalition. Terran, Boram asked, reading over Wu Jin's shoulder. I have never heard of this species. Taehyun was already searching through their databases. No records of Terrans or Terra or Earth in any of our files. They are completely unknown. Could it be a mistake? Someone asked. Wu Jin stared at the message. Something about it felt different from all the others. There was no sympathy, no apology, no explanation of why they could not help. Just a promise and an order to hold on. Send a reply, he said. Ask them when they will arrive and what forces they are bringing. The answer came back quickly. 3 days, enough. Boram laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Enough? The Vorthak have over 400 ships. How can anyone have enough to fight that? But Wu Jin found himself feeling something he had not felt in weeks. Hope. There was something about these Terrans. Something in their short, confident messages that made him believe they might actually be able to help. Tell all our ships to pull back to defensive positions around the homeworld, he ordered. And send word to all our people. Help is coming. 3 days later, as the Vorthak fleet took its final positions around Kelva Prime, new ships appeared at the edge of the system. They were unlike anything in the galactic databases. Dark, angular, covered in weapons and armor. They looked like they had been built for one purpose only: war. The human ships hung in space like metal predators. Ambassador Wu Jin stared at them through the viewing screen of the orbital station, trying to understand what he was seeing. The vessels were massive, but not in the graceful way of Kelvani bioships or the artistic curves of other species craft. These ships looked like they had been hammered into shape by someone who cared only about function. 30 ships, reported Taehyun from his console, against 400 Vorthak vessels. Council leader Boram joined Wu Jin at the viewing screen. Her pale blue skin had taken on a gray tint that showed her fear. What kind of species builds ships like that? Before anyone could answer, their communication system activated. The voice that came through was unlike any they had heard before. It was rough, scarred by what sounded like old damage, but absolutely confident. Kelvani vessels, this is Admiral Jihu Park of the Terran Defense Coalition. We need to talk, now. An hour later, Wu Jin found himself aboard the human flagship. The ship was called Soul's Pride, and everything about it was wrong by Kelvani standards. The corridors were too narrow, the lighting too harsh, and there was a smell in the air that made his nose burn. Worse, the gravity was almost twice what he was used to. Each step felt like he was carrying another person on his back. The humans who escorted him were just as shocking as their ship. They were tall and built thick with muscle. Their skin was tanned dark by what must have been a terrible sun, and many of them had scars. The worst part was their eyes. They moved constantly, watching everything, like predators looking for threats. The meeting room was simple and functional. No art, no plants, no beauty at all. Just a metal table and chairs that looked like they could survive a bomb blast. Admiral Park was waiting for them, and Wu Jin almost stepped backward when he saw him. The human admiral was missing his left arm. In its place was a mechanical replacement that moved with smooth, deadly precision. Scars crossed his face and disappeared under his uniform, but his eyes were alert and intelligent, and when he spoke, his voice was respectful. Ambassador Wu Jin, Council Leader Boram, thank you for coming. I know our ship is not comfortable for your people. A human woman stepped forward. She was smaller than the others, with gentler eyes, but Wu Jin could see the same underlying strength in her. I am Dr. Da-Yoon Kim, Chief Medical Officer. I have been studying your people's biology. We want to make sure we can help if any of you are injured. Boram managed to find her voice. Admiral Park, we are grateful that you answered our call. But I must ask, how do you plan to fight 400 ships with only 30? Admiral Park smiled, and Wu Jin realized that humans showed their teeth when they were pleased. It was terrifying. That's exactly what I wanted to discuss. Tell me about the Vorthak fleet composition. For the next hour, they shared everything they knew about the Vorthak forces. Admiral Park listened carefully, sometimes asking Dr. Kim to take notes on a device that looked more like a weapon than a computer. Other humans came and went, including a man introduced as Captain Young-Ho Lee and a woman called Engineer So-Young Choi. What disturbed Wu Jin most was how casually the humans talked about violence. They discussed weapon types and armor thickness like Kelvani might talk about flower arrangements. When Captain Lee mentioned acceptable casualty rates, Wu Jin had to sit down. You speak of death so easily, Boram said quietly. Dr. Kim looked at her with what might have been sympathy. We do not speak of it easily. But we speak of it honestly. War means people die. If we pretend otherwise, more people die unnecessarily. Tell us about your world, Wu Jin asked. This Terra. What kind of place creates warriors like you? The humans exchanged glances. Dr. Kim spoke carefully. Earth is not challenging. Most of our planet is covered with water that can kill you if you fall into it. The land has deserts that will cook you during the day and freeze you at night. Mountains that touch the clouds. Storms that can destroy cities. And the life forms? Borum asked. Captain Lee laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Everything on Earth is trying to eat everything else. We have predators with teeth as long as your hand. Snakes whose bite can kill in minutes. Insects that hunt in groups of millions. Engineer So Young added, humans are not even the strongest or fastest creatures on our world. We survived by being smarter and more stubborn than everything trying to kill us. Wu Jin felt sick. How do you sleep at night knowing such things exist? We learn to be more dangerous than they are, Admiral Park said simply. The conversation turned to tactics. Admiral Park brought up a display showing the Vorthak fleet formation. To Kelvani eyes, it looked overwhelming. An unstoppable wall of ships advancing toward their worlds. The Vorthak fight like bullies, Admiral Park explained. They are used to species that surrender when they see this formation. But look at the spacing. Look at how their command ships are positioned. He pointed to several larger vessels in the center of the formation. Their entire fleet is controlled from these ships. Take them out and the rest will be confused and disorganized. But how can you reach them? Taehyun asked. They are protected by hundreds of other ships. Admiral Park's smile showed his teeth again. We go through them. The plan he outlined was insane by any reasonable standard. The human fleet would split into 3 groups. The main force would attack the Vorthak command ships directly, fighting through whatever stood in their way. A second group would hit the supply ships and support vessels. The third would defend Kelva Prime itself. This is suicide, Boram whispered. Maybe, Admiral Park agreed, but it is also the only way to win. The Vorthak have never faced humans before. They do not know what we are capable of. Dr. Kim opened a medical kit and showed them devices inside. Some looked like healing tools, but others looked like weapons. We have combined our medical technology with yours. Human soldiers can keep fighting with injuries that would stop other species. We heal fast, Captain Lee added, and we do not give up. As the meeting continued, Wu Jin began to understand what they had called to their system. These humans were not just warriors. They were survivors from a world that had tried to kill them every day of their lives. They had learned to fight not because they loved violence, but because everything in their world had forced them to become strong. Why? He asked suddenly. Why are you helping us? You do not know us. We cannot offer you anything worth the lives you will lose. The room fell quiet. Admiral Park looked at Dr. Kim, then at his other officers. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer. Because someone has to, he said. Because you asked for help and no one else answered. Because if we do not stand up to bullies like the Vorthak, they will never stop taking from people who cannot fight back. Dr. Kim nodded. And because you offered to share your healing technology. That alone could save millions of lives across the galaxy. The meeting ended with plans being made for the battle. The humans would attack in 18 hours. Wu Jin and the other Kelvani returned to their station feeling stunned and hopeful and terrified all at once. That night, as Wu Jin looked out at the human ships preparing for battle, he wondered if they had made the right choice. These Terrans were dangerous in ways the Kelvani had never imagined. But they were also willing to die for people they had never met. Tomorrow they would learn what happened when Deathworlders went to war. The hours before battle moved like a slow dream. Wu Jin walked through the Kelvani station, watching his people prepare for something they had never experienced. Some worked frantically, trying to reinforce their bioships with whatever they could find. Others sat in quiet meditation, accepting that they might die soon. On the human ships, things were different. Taehyun had asked permission to observe their preparations, and what he saw confused him. The humans moved with calm efficiency, checking weapons and equipment like they were preparing for a normal workday. Some even joked with each other. Are they not afraid? Taehyun asked Dr. Daun, who was working on medical preparations in the station's healing center. The human doctor looked up from a device that seemed to combine Kelvani bioregeneration technology with human medical tools. They are terrified, she said quietly. But fear and courage are not opposites. Courage is being afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway. She showed him a datapad displaying information about Earth. Let me tell you what our worlds are like, so you understand what kind of people you have called. The images made Tae-hyun's skin turn pale blue with shock. Earth was a world of extremes. Storms that could level cities swept across continents. Earthquakes split the ground open. Volcanoes buried entire regions in burning rock. Ice covered huge areas for months at a time, while other places were so hot that nothing could survive during the day. How does anything live there? He whispered. By being tougher than the world itself, Dr. Daun replied. Humans evolved on a planet that was trying to kill them every day. We learned to endure things that would destroy other species. She showed him more data. Humans could survive without food for weeks. They could run for hours without stopping, chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They could fight with injuries that would put other species in shock. Most shocking of all, they could recover from wounds that should have been fatal. But the most important thing, Dr. Daun said, is that we learn to protect each other. When the world is trying to kill you, the only way to survive is to make sure your tribe survives too. On the Vorthak flagship, Commander Vashitar studied the scan results of the human ships with growing confusion. The vessels were smaller than his largest battleships, but they were covered in weapons and armor. Their design made no sense by normal standards. They waste so much space on defensive systems, his tactical officer reported. And these weapon placements? They are designed for close combat. No civilized species fights at such short ranges. Vashitar's compound eyes reflected the light from his displays. The Vorthak had conquered dozens of species, and they all followed predictable patterns. When faced with overwhelming force, they either surrendered immediately or made desperate, disorganized attacks that were easily defeated. How many species have we fought that came from Deathworlds? He asked his intelligence officer. Deathworlds? The officer's antennae twitched in confusion. No intelligent species evolves on Deathworlds. It is impossible. But as Vashitar studied the human ships, he began to suspect that the impossible had happened. Back on the Kelvani station, Engineer So Young was working with a team of Kelvani technicians to integrate their technologies. The results amazed both species. Kelvani biotechnology could heal damage in real time, while human engineering could make systems that refused to break down. Your ships grow back when they are damaged, So Young said in wonder, watching a Kelvani bioship repair a hull breach by literally growing new material to fill the gap. Your ships continue, working even when they are mostly destroyed, replied the Kelvani engineer she was working with. How do you build machines that stubborn? So Young grinned. We build them like humans. Too tough to know when to quit. The integration was producing remarkable results. Human weapons powered by Kelvani bioenergy lasted longer and hit harder. Kelvani healing systems guided by human medical knowledge could fix injuries that had never been treatable before. But the real breakthrough came when Tae-hyun made a suggestion that stunned everyone. What if we do not just defend? He asked during a joint planning session. What if we help attack? The humans stared at him. The Kelvani had never fought anyone. They did not even have words for many military concepts. We cannot use weapons, Tae-hyun explained, but we can use our biotechnology in ways it was never meant to be used. He showed them designs for organisms that could interfere with Vorthak technology, viruses that would shut down their computer systems, bacterial colonies that would eat through their ship hulls, plants that could grow inside their vessels and make them impossible to control. You want to turn your healing technology into weapons? Dr. Daewon asked. We want to protect our people, Tae-hyun replied. If that means learning to fight, then we will learn. Admiral Park was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. It could work, but it means your people will have to get close to Vorthak ships. That is very dangerous. Everything is dangerous now, Tae-hyun said. At least this way we are doing something instead of just hiding. As the final preparations were made, Woo Jin found himself thinking about what Dr. Daun had told him about human evolution. These people had been shaped by a world that never gave them mercy. They had learned to be hard because anything soft would have died, but they had also learned something else. When Captain Young-ho spoke to his Marines, Woo Jin heard something that surprised him. The human soldiers were not fighting because they enjoyed violence. They were fighting because they believed in protecting others. We are not here for glory, Captain Young-ho told his troops. We are not here for conquest. We are here because peaceful people asked for help and no one else would come. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens innocence while humans are watching. The countdown to battle reached its final minutes. The Vorthak fleet was moving into attack position, confident that the small human force would be easily crushed. They had no idea what they were about to face. On the human ships, crews made their final checks. Weapons were loaded, armor was sealed, medical teams stood ready. In the Kelvani bioships, technicians prepared organisms that had never been used for war. Admiral Park opened a communication channel that reached every ship in both fleets. All vessels. This is Admiral Park. In 60 seconds, we begin our attack. Remember, we are not just fighting for the Kelvani. We are fighting for every peaceful species in the galaxy. We are fighting to show bullies like the Vorthak that their victims are not alone. Today we teach them that some people will fight back. As the final seconds counted down, Wu Jin watched the human ships begin to move. They accelerated toward the massive Vorthak formation like arrows shot from a bow. The battle for Kelva Prime was about to begin. The first exchange of weapons fire lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. Admiral Park watched from the bridge of Soul's Pride as his ships charged directly into the Vorthak formation. The enemy had expected the humans to attack from long range, using careful tactics and staying safe. Instead, the human ships dove straight toward the enemy command vessels like metal comets. All ships, execute Alpha Strike, Park ordered into his communications device. The human fleet split apart with perfect timing. 10 ships followed Park toward the Vorthak command center. Another 10, led by Captain Young-ho and the ship Busan Hammer, swept toward the enemy supply lines. The remaining ships took defensive positions around the Kelvani worlds. The Vorthak response was exactly what Park had expected. Hundreds of enemy ships turned to face the human attack, their weapons blazing, but their formations were designed to intimidate weaker species, not to fight an actual military force. The concentrated fire that should have destroyed the human ships instead hit mostly empty space as the human vessels wove between the attacks. "Sir, the Vorthak are trying to surround us," reported his tactical officer. "Let them," Park replied. "Young-ho, how are you doing out there?" Captain Young-ho's voice came back over the radio, calm despite the chaos around him. "Supply convoy is running scared. These Vorthak have never faced anyone who shoots back." On the Kelvani station, Wu Jin and the others watched in amazement as the human ships fought. The vessels took hits that should have crippled them, but they kept fighting. When Soul's Pride lost its main weapon, the crew switched to backup systems without missing a beat. When another ship lost its engines, it used its maneuvering thrusters to ram into a Vorthak cruiser. "How are they still fighting?" Boram whispered. Dr. Da-un, who was monitoring the battle from the medical station, answered grimly. "Human ships are built like humans. They do not know when to quit." The real shock came when the Kelvani bioships joined the attack. Taehyun had worked with his people to create something the galaxy had never seen before. Their peaceful healing organisms had been changed into weapons of war. The first Vorthak ship to be hit by a Kelvani bioweapon simply stopped working. Bacterial colonies spread through its computer systems, eating the organic components that controlled everything. Within minutes, the massive vessel was drifting helplessly. "Bioweapon deployment successful," Taehyun reported, his voice shaking with excitement and fear. "Target vessel is disabled, but the Vorthak adapted quickly." Commander Vashtar ordered his ships to stay away from the Kelvani vessels and focus their fire on the humans. The insect-like commander was beginning to understand what he was facing. "These humans are from a death world," he told his officers. "Their ships are built to survive impacts that would destroy our vessels. Their crew can fight with injuries that would kill our soldiers. How do we defeat them?" his tactical officer asked. "We overwhelm them," Vashtar replied. "They are still only 30 ships against our 400. The battle turned into a deadly dance in space. Human ships moved in patterns that confused the Vorthak, working together like a pack of hunters. When one ship was damaged, another would move to protect it. When a group of Vorthak ships concentrated their fire, the humans would split apart and attack from different directions. Admiral Park pushed Soul's Pride deeper into the enemy formation, hunting for the command ships. His vessel was badly damaged now, with holes in the hull and fires burning in several sections. But the crew kept working, sealing breaches and rerouting power like their lives depended on it. Because they did. "Sir, we have a clear shot at the flagship," his weapons officer reported. "Take it," Park ordered. The shot connected, but the Vorthak flagship was heavily armored. It shook from the impact but kept fighting. Worse, Park's attack had revealed his position to every enemy ship in the area. Suddenly, Soul's Pride was taking fire from dozens of directions. Hull breach on Deck 7, someone reported. Life support failing in sections 4 through 8. Weapons are offline, another voice called out. Park looked at his tactical display. The Vorthak flagship was right in front of them, its weapons charging for a shot that would finish Soul's Pride. Around them, his other ships were fighting desperately, but they were outnumbered 20-1. That was when Park made a decision that would become legend among both humans and Kelvani. All power to engines, he ordered. Ramming speed, sir? His helmsman asked. You heard me. We are going to ram that flagship. Soul's Pride accelerated toward the Vorthak command ship like a bullet. The enemy vessel tried to turn away, but it was too big and too slow. The human ship slammed into its side with an impact that could be felt throughout both fleets. But Park was not finished. As his ship tore through the Vorthak hull, he led a boarding party into the enemy vessel. Human Marines in combat suits fought their way through the corridors, using weapons and tactics that the Vorthak had never encountered. The insect-like Vorthak were individually stronger than humans, but they had never learned to fight in the cramped spaces inside a damaged ship. The humans moved through the wreckage like they had been born to it, using the destroyed corridors and twisted metal as weapons. Meanwhile, Captain Young-ho was facing his own crisis. His ship had been surrounded by Vorthak vessels while attacking their supply convoy. The Busan Hammer was taking heavy damage, its shields failing and its hull cracking under the assault. Captain, we need to retreat, his second-in-command reported. Young-ho looked at his tactical display. If his ships retreated now, the Vorthak supply vessels would reach the main battle and turn the tide against the humans. Too many people would die. Negative, he said. We hold here. The battle around his ship became a desperate struggle. Human Marines used emergency airlocks to board Vorthak vessels, fighting in zero gravity and vacuum. Engineers worked frantically to keep damaged systems running. Medical teams treated wounds while under fire. On the Kelvani station, Dr. Dayun was pushing their combined medical technology to its limits. Human soldiers were being brought in with injuries that should have been fatal, but the bioregeneration systems were keeping them alive. Some were going back to fight while still healing. This is impossible, a Kelvani medic said, watching a human Marine with a hole in his chest insist on returning to battle. This is humanity, Dr. Dayun replied. They do not accept that something is impossible just because it should be. The turning point came when Tae-hyun and his bioweapon teams made their move. While the Vorthak were focused on the human ships, the Kelvani vessels approached the remaining command ships. Their bioweapons spread through the enemy fleet like a plague, shutting down ship after ship. But the cost was terrible. Captain Young-ho's ship was finally overwhelmed, its hull cracking open to space. Emergency signals showed that he and most of his crew were lost. 3 other human ships had been destroyed completely. The survivors were all damaged, some barely able to fight. Then, from the wreckage of the Vorthak flagship, came Admiral Park's voice. All Vorthak vessels. This is Admiral Park speaking from your former command ship. Your leadership is dead or captured. Your supply lines are cut. Your formation is broken. You have one choice. Retreat now or join your commanders. For a moment, space was silent except for the crackling of damaged communication systems. Then, one by one, the Vorthak ships began to turn away from Kelva Prime. Their formation collapsed as vessels fled in different directions, abandoning the invasion force. The Battle of Kelva Prime was over. The peaceful Kelvani had been saved, but at a cost that would be remembered forever. The silence after battle was strange and heavy. Woojin stood on the observation deck of the Kelvani station, looking out at the wreckage floating in space. Pieces of ships, both human and Vorthak, drifted like metal snow against the stars. The beautiful crystal cities of Kelva Prime still gleamed in the distance, saved but forever changed. Admiral Park had survived the ramming of the Vorthak flagship, though he was badly injured. Dr. Dawon worked for hours to save his life, using both human medicine and Kelvani bioregeneration technology. When she was finished, she looked exhausted but satisfied. He will live, she told Woojin, but it will take time for him to heal completely. The human admiral was not the only survivor who needed extensive treatment. Of the 30 ships that had answered the Kelvani call for help, only 18 remained. Hundreds of human crew members had been killed or wounded. Captain Young-ho was among the dead, having stayed on his ship's bridge until the end to make sure his crew could escape. But they had won. The Vorthak invasion fleet was gone, scattered across space or destroyed. Commander Vashtar had been captured along with dozens of other Vorthak officers. For the first time in their history, the insect-like conquerors had been completely defeated. 3 days after the battle, a ceremony was held on Kelva Prime. The humans who could travel came down to the planet's surface, though many needed medical support to handle the gravity and atmosphere. Wu Jin watched them walk slowly through the crystal gardens, their faces showing wonder at the beauty around them. "I have never seen anything like this," said Engineer So Young, touching a flower that sang when she came near it. "On Earth we have to fight just to grow food. Here, art grows from the ground." "And we had never seen anything like what you did for us," replied Taehyun. The young Kelvani had changed during the battle. He no longer seemed like the nervous communications officer from before. There was something stronger in his eyes now. The ceremony was simple but powerful. Council leader Boram spoke for all the Kelvani people, thanking the humans for their sacrifice. Admiral Park, supported by medical equipment but determined to attend, spoke for the human fleet. "We did not come here as conquerors," he said, his voice still weak from his injuries. "We came because people asked for help and we had the power to give it. That is what makes us human. Not our weapons or our ships, but our choice to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Dr. Dayun presented the results of their combined medical research. The integration of human and Kelvani technology had created healing systems that could save lives in ways neither species had imagined possible. Battle injuries that would have meant death could now be healed completely. Diseases that had plagued both species for centuries could be cured. "This is your gift to the galaxy," she told the assembled crowd. "Not just the technology, but the proof that different species can work together to become something greater than either could be alone." But the real change was harder to see. The Kelvani had learned that sometimes peace required the willingness to fight. Taehyun and several other young Kelvani asked to join the human fleet, wanting to learn how to protect other peaceful species from threats like the Vorthak. "War changed us," Taehyun admitted to Wu Jin one evening as they watched human engineers helping to repair the orbital station. "We can never go back to being completely innocent. But maybe that is not entirely bad. Maybe innocence that cannot defend itself is not really worth having." The humans, for their part, were changed by seeing what they had fought to protect. Many of them asked to stay on Kelva Prime for extended periods, working with Kelvani scientists and artists. Engineer So Young formally requested transfer to the diplomatic corps, wanting to help build bridges between species. "We have spent so long fighting that we forgot what we were fighting for," she explained to Admiral Park. "The Kelvani remind us that beauty and peace are worth preserving." 6 months after the battle, the first formal treaty between Earth and the Kelvani Republic was signed. It established what would become known as the Terran-Kelvani Alliance, combining human military strength with Kelvani healing technology and peaceful wisdom. The alliance quickly became a beacon of hope for other species. Word of the Battle of Kelva Prime spread throughout the galaxy, carried by refugees who had witnessed the fight and survivors who had been saved. Peaceful species began to realize that they were not defenseless against predators like the Vorthak. Aggressive species learned a different lesson. The galaxy was no longer safe for bullies who preyed on the weak. Somewhere out there were the Deathworlders from Earth, and they answered calls for help. The Alliance's first test came sooner than expected. A distress signal arrived from the Gentle Cascade, a group of floating cities inhabited by a species of peaceful artists and philosophers. They were under attack by raiders who wanted to enslave them for their beautiful creations. Admiral Park, now fully healed and commanding a mixed fleet of human and Kelvani vessels, received the message while reviewing reports at the Alliance headquarters on Kelva Prime. The human ships were stronger now, reinforced with Kelvani biotechnology. The Kelvani vessels carried defensive weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we have 18 human ships and 12 Kelvani bioships ready for deployment." Park looked at the star map showing the location of the Gentle Cascade. It was a 4-day journey at maximum speed. The artists and philosophers there had no military and no way to defend themselves. Without help, they would be dead or enslaved within a week. "All ships prepare for immediate departure," Park ordered, "and send a message to the Gentle Cascade. Tell them help is coming." As the Alliance fleet prepared to leave Kelva Prime, Wu Jin came to the command ship to see them off. The old ambassador had become the Alliance's first civilian leader, working to coordinate between species and find peaceful solutions when possible. "You know this will never end," he told Admiral Park as they watched the ships prepare for departure. "There will always be another call for help, another species in danger." Park nodded. "I know. But that is not a reason to stop answering. The galaxy is a dangerous place," Wu Jin continued, "full of species that see others as resources to be taken or obstacles to be destroyed. How do we change that?" "One rescue at a time," Park replied. "Every time we show up when someone calls for help, we prove that the strong can choose to protect the weak instead of exploiting them. Eventually, maybe that idea will spread." The Alliance fleet jumped to hyperspace, racing toward their next mission. Behind them, Kelva Prime continued to grow and heal, its crystal cities reaching toward the stars. The peaceful Kelvani worked alongside human engineers and soldiers, building something new together. In the years that followed, the Alliance would answer dozens of distress calls. They would save peaceful species from conquest, stop pirates from raiding trade routes, and even negotiate treaties between warring civilizations. Not every mission succeeded, and the cost in lives was always heavy, but they never stopped answering when someone called for help. The alliance between the Deathworlders from Earth and the healers from Kelva Prime became the foundation for something larger. Other species began to join, adding their own strengths to the growing coalition of protectors. And in the darkest corners of the galaxy, predators and raiders learned to fear a simple message that might appear on their communication systems. "This is the Terran Kelvani Alliance. You are in violation of the Galactic Protection Accord. Cease your hostile actions immediately, or we will be forced to stop you." The Deathworlders had come when the stars asked for help, and they would keep coming, for as long as there were peaceful people who needed protection from those who would do them harm.